Hey folks, this is a bit of a different video, just sharing some lessons that I've learned in my practice of piano over the last sort of few months. So I've actually noticed that I've slipped into some bad habits as I've been self-learning piano. And I just want to share some of the changes that I've made in my practice, which has like significantly made my piano playing better, in the hopes that it might help somebody else who's also on the self-learning piano journey. So there's 3 habits that I've noticed that I've been doing. The first one is not having good posture. I've just noticed that my posture's completely slipped in the way that I sit down on the piano and approach sort of like my body towards the piano. I think it's quite easy as a self-learner to slip into bad posture because no one's observing or giving you feedback on it. So this is an area that I've looked into addressing. So what is good posture? So good posture is basically we want to sit further on the stool, and ideally a stool, because if you've got like a computer chair or something like that which got wheels on it, you can't get into this forward position. I've definitely tried it and stacked it a couple of times, so I would not recommend. So as we sit on the stool, we want to have the edge of the stool basically in between where our legs hit our bum cheeks, and that's really good. And then with our hands, we want them to be at a 90-degree angle to the keyboard, and we want to curl our fingers in a restful state. Some things that I found by doing this posture is that I feel a lot more stable and grounded, although it looks like there's less of me planted on the stool. It just gives me a lot more flexibility and a lot more control in how I'm using my hands and my arms. And also I've got really small hands, and I found that by being able to pivot further across the piano, I'm actually getting my body in a position where I can reach wider intervals on the piano, which is really awesome. Next time you're in your practice session, maybe just try and observe how your posture is and how you're sitting down at the piano. Number 2 is overuse of the sustain pedal. So I started with a keyboard background, so I had lessons as a kid and all throughout my adolescence. And when the sustain pedal was introduced to me, it was like this magical pedal, and I loved it. So what the sustain pedal does is when you hit a note and you put the sustain pedal on, it will make that note ring out longer, which is really useful when we play the piano to make things sound joined together. But what I found out is that I'm overusing it in the way that instead of playing notes for the full length of the note rhythm, I'm basically clicking the note, putting the sustain pedal on, and also jumping my hand up to move to the next note. Although this is not necessarily a bad thing, but it just changes the sound that we're producing with the piano. I want to make the notes as smooth as possible and as even as possible in my hand, and then the pedal is there to make it sound even better, not as a substitute for unevenness or jumping around. And my last point on the sustain pedal is that when you're practicing, maybe take the pedal off so you can really listen to what you're actually playing, because when you put the sustain pedal on, when you're practicing a specific line or area of a piece, it can muddy kind of what you're doing and observing kind of what you're doing. So would recommend not overusing the sustain pedal, use it for its purpose. Okay, so number 3 is not using the metronome enough. Like I said earlier, so I learnt on a keyboard, and metronome was always on because you had a backing track to play with, and it was really good. When I've started self-learning kind of piano, where there's not that backing, it was really good because it was freedom of expression, but I've noticed that my rhythm has slipped, and when I listen back to some of my arrangements, my tempo is all over the shop. So what I've done is reintroduce the metronome just to make sure that when I'm playing evenly and to the same tempo. Another thing that I found with the metronome, particularly in a practice session, is that it helps me to slow down when I'm practicing. So I thought when I practiced I was playing stuff slow, but actually by introducing the metronome, it sort of highlighted that I wasn't practicing slow. So I'd put the metronome on and then do my little passage. I'd be like, wow, no wait, that's too quick. I need to really slow this down. But if I didn't have that, I would have just assumed that I was playing slowly, and that's really helpful in the practice session if you can do things slowly, because then you're really accurately playing the part that you want to play, and then you can just build the speed over time. So yeah, using the metronome has just made my arrangements just that extra bit smoother and even, and not like up and down on like the tempo and stuff. And also it's helped in the practice session of, yeah, just making sure that I'm practicing slow, which is like a key principle of practicing the piano. So those are the 3 habits that I've sort of slipped into as a self-learner that, yeah, by bringing attention to it and changing it up, I personally think it's like changed the way that I approach piano, and it's just making the sound that I'm producing a lot better. So yeah, just wanted to share this publicly in the way that it might help somebody else who is also self-learning piano. I think by bringing awareness to these things, we can then kind of rectify them, and eventually it's just going to help us get better in our craft. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share for today. And I'll hopefully see you soon.